Mark, sometimes you don't need analytical data to tell you the story. Just look at the situation, find the trend, and make the decision.
Tyler Boyd's dip in production last year better correlates with Andy Dalton being off the field than it does with A.J. Green being off the field, despite public perception.
You can't watch just highlight film because highlight film only shows the good things. Watch the player's actual game tape because you see the good and the bad.
In 7 games in 2018, where all 3 starting Rams receivers were healthy, Brandon Cooks led the trio in targets, receptions, receiving yards, and total PPR points by a considerable margin.
It's a beautiful day for football. Welcome into the RotoBros Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm Chris McConnell. Producer man, where's Mark?
Chris, I believe the direct quote was, LOL, I'm still at work. This job, I'm out.
Oh, that's right. Okay, so I'm going to be doing the show by myself today. So it's just going to be me. I'm going to be flying solo. So I'm going to be hanging out with you guys tonight, and we are going to get you guys ready for Week 9. So let's end the intro the way we always do. And we are the RotoBros. Tonight, obviously, I am a RotoBro, singular. My partner is taking care of some business tonight. So, but we got to take care of business. We got to take care of your business because you got to get ready for Week 9, and that is what the RotoBros is here to do. So whether it's both of us or whether it's one of us, we're going to get you guys all squared away and get you ready for the Week 9 fantasy slate coming up this weekend. So we've got a lot to get to. There's a lot of news that went down. There's a couple injury nuggets that we need to cover and see how those could impact the rest of the fantasy season. But first, you can find me on Twitter at MindOfMcConnell, as always. And, of course, you can find me on Facebook at the largest, most active fantasy sports community on the planet. That is FSA, Fantasy Sports Advice and Analysis. Just go to Facebook, type in FSA Fantasy. The group will pop right up. Go ahead and join the group, and we will go ahead and accept your request personally. So you guys definitely don't want to miss out on FSA. I know a lot of our listeners are from FSA. The RotoBros are building that listenership outside of FSA. But if you're one of those people that just stumbled across the podcast or a friend told you about it, first of all, thank that friend. Okay. And then number 2, we want to welcome you, of course, and just let you know, FSA is definitely a great place to be. So come join the family. I know a lot of people are on fantasy Twitter. A lot of people are on fantasy Reddit. But I'm telling you, fantasy Facebook is a blast. And there's no better place to come check it out. Talk fantasy, talk sports in general. Find owners for your league. Find a league to join if you're looking for one. And this goes for 24/7, 365. This isn't just for football. This is for every sport. Football, basketball, baseball, hockey. We cover it all. And of course, we're more active than any group you will find. I can promise you that. And we don't say that lightly. We wear that tag with some pride. We wear that pin with some pride here. So definitely check out the home of the RotoBros. Again, that is on Facebook at FSA Fantasy Sports Advice and Analysis. Okay. So obviously, again, like I said, there's a lot of stuff to get to tonight. We're going to talk about, kind of give you the rundown of what we're going to discuss here tonight. We're going to discuss Kenyan Drake, obviously, traded to the Cardinals. That's the biggest news of the week. But how much fantasy impact does it actually have? I mean, if anybody that knows me or that's listened to this show knows how much of a Kenyan Drake fan I am. I love Kenyan Drake. I love his game. Okay, so we're definitely going to get to that because there's a lot to dive into in the Cardinals backfield. I know a lot of people have questions because we just got off. Well, we'll get to that in just a second. I won't give it all away. We'll get to that in just a second. So Kenyan Drake traded to the Cardinals. Andy Dalton has been benched. Andy Dalton has been benched. Is it 3-4 years too late? I mean, I think some people would say, even Bengals fans. So Andy Dalton is benched. Who will start in his place? We'll discuss that as well. Miles Sanders, he's a hot name right now. A lot of people want to know about Miles Sanders, his rest of the season outlook. You'll get my thoughts on that. And then, of course, Tevin Coleman. Is Tevin Coleman a league winner? He just erupted for 4 touchdowns, but is he a league winner? We're going to dive into that as well. But first, let's get into some of the news and notes and some of the injuries that have occurred and how that could affect your fantasy season, rest of season. So first of all, obviously there was a big injury this week that a lot of people really just heard about after the weekend. Monday morning, Tuesday morning, everybody just started hearing about it. James Conner, shoulder injury. We didn't know how serious it was. Thankfully, it is not a clavicle. It's not the dreaded clavicle injury. So he is not going to be out for the season. It's possible he could miss this game, but from all indications, it sounds like the Steelers are planning to have him this weekend. They're planning to have him on Sunday. So I know as soon as everybody heard that James Conner was injured, and then Mike Tomlin gave Jalen Samuels a clean bill of health, everybody just went nuts about Jalen Samuels. And that's fine. Jalen Samuels is one of the top handcuffs, I'd say, in the league. But I don't think we have anything to worry about with James Conner. Now, look, if he misses this week, and that's fine. Go ahead and deploy Jalen Samuels, as a mid to low RB2. But I do believe that James Conner is going to be fine. That's what all indications are giving us right now. He's going to be okay. So if you're a James Conner owner in several leagues, just like I am, you can pretty much breathe a sigh of relief because it's not the clavicle. It's just an AC joint sprain, I believe. So it's not obviously great news. You don't want your guys getting injured at all, but it is definitely on the less severe side of things for James Conner. So it's actually good news for him. You guys know, like I have said this for weeks now, ever since Ben Roethlisberger went down. I told you guys this is a good thing for James Conner because we know how James Conner got off on the wrong foot of the season, right? He just wasn't he wasn't playing James Conner football like we all had hoped when we drafted him, in the mid to late second round. Some at the tail end of the tail beginning of the second round. Some were drafting him that high. And for good measure. I mean, he's on that offense. Ben Roethlisberger, Juju Smith-Schuster, no Antonio Brown, but you still expected James Conner to be fine. But, I mean, he started the season off 10 attempts, 21 yards against New England. Now we know what New England's defense is, so maybe that's not as much of a surprise. Seattle, the very next game, week 2, 11 carries, 33 yards. He had a touchdown, but not a great fantasy day. The following week, at San Francisco, 13 carries, 43 yards. Next week, Cincinnati, 10 carries, 42 yards. And he had that receiving touchdown. So that was really his big game. That was really it right there. And obviously they won big 27-3. So that was where the whole turnaround began. And that's where I told you guys, this is a buy low for James Conner. This is a buy low for James Conner. And so far, he has not disappointed. He is coming off a game against Miami. We knew he was going to blow up against Miami. The most carries he's gotten, the most touches he's gotten all year, which was he had 23 attempts, 23 rushes, and 3 catches there against Miami. So 26 touches altogether, the most he's had all year. 145 rushing yards. 150 all-purpose yards for James Conner and a touchdown. So he killed it, obviously, Monday night. We know that. So, look, James Conner's fine. He's going to be an RB1, more than likely rest of season as long as he stays healthy. So he was a guy that you should have bought low on when we told you to because Ben Roethlisberger going down was always going to be a good thing for him. Mason Rudolph, they obviously do not trust Mason Rudolph to go downfield that much. They obviously don't. I mean, it was Mason Rudolph's first start. You could tell. It was dink, dunk, dink, dunk, dink, dunk. And we knew James Conner was going to be a lot more heavily involved in the passing game. And you see he has been. He pretty much has been. Now, there was that one game at Baltimore where he didn't do anything in the receiving game really whatsoever. But after Ben went down, he had 8 targets against Cincinnati, 7 targets against the Chargers. He just had 4 targets against Miami, but he didn't have as many. He wasn't as involved in the receiving games. He didn't have to be. He was getting all this work in the running game. So this has always been a good thing for James Conner. So, if you're a James Conner owner, breathe a sigh of relief that the injury is not bad. But anyway, James Conner hurt. He's going to be nursing the shoulder. Hopefully he's not out this week, but if he is, at least it's likely only to be 1 week, barring any unforeseen setbacks, of course. Joe Flacco is out 5 to 6 weeks with a herniated disc. So a lot of people are asking, well, what does that mean for Drew Lock? Who's going to be the starting quarterback? Well, it's not going to be Drew Lock. It's going to be Brandon Allen. Brandon Allen is going to be the starting quarterback for the Denver Broncos for at least the next 2 to 3 weeks. Look, this is not... I don't want to say this is an upgrade. You can't really get a whole lot worse, I guess, than what Flacco's been, a whole lot more pedestrian than him. It's not a great thing for the offense. The offense, to me, it just doesn't change. It really doesn't change that much. Is Brandon Allen more capable? Possibly. I think you could argue that. Obviously not as experienced. But look, he's going to get his shot. And he's got the weapons around him to do some good things. Now, obviously, with Emmanuel Sanders gone now, that's one safety blanket you can't really rely on. You don't really have an essential safety blanket now. So that's not a great thing for Brandon Allen. I wouldn't call Courtland Sutton a safety blanket. I mean, he's their number one wide receiver. He's going to be going downfield, and they need Deshaun Hamilton to be the safety blanket is what they need. Because he's the guy that's supposed to be taking Emmanuel Sanders' spot. And right now, he has not lived up to that. He was a guy that I really liked coming out of college. And I still think he's going to be a fine receiver. He was one of the best route runner, arguably the best route runner in that draft last year. I know a lot of people are talking about Calvin Ridley and all that, and I get it. But Deshaun Hamilton was just as good as of a route runner as Calvin Ridley. Now, he's got to work on not dropping touchdown catches and not letting, footballs hit him in the hands and dropping. I mean he can't do that. He's got to work on that. And that's fixable. That's fixable for Deshaun. But a guy like Brandon Allen is going to need a guy like Deshaun Hamilton. Noah Fant, we can tell he's improving, it seems, week to week. He's got a little bit of a tight end learning curve, but he's getting there. He's going to be fine, I think. And obviously with Royce and Phillip in the backfield, you've got a solid running game to play behind. But look, here's my thing. I'm not a fan. I think Vic Fangio is a terrible head coach. I think I don't think they have great play callers on that offense. I've been puzzled at some of the play calling that they've had on that Denver offense. And it just makes you scratch your head. And the offensive line isn't great, obviously. This is just not the same team that we've come to know. It's not even really the same defense that we've come to know from the Broncos. So look, they've got some things to work out. Can Brandon Allen do the job? He probably can, but we'll see. I do think it's probably a slight downgrade for Courtland Sutton, but I don't think it's anything that Courtland Sutton can't overcome. I don't think it's look. I'm not. Maybe they'll lean more on the run, which I think would obviously be a good thing for Phillip and Royce. Both those guys to me are firm holds. I'm not a huge Royce fan, as most of you guys know. I'm a huge Phillip Lindsay guy. But I think this could end up being a good thing for the running game. So Brandon Allen can get the job done. They've just got to get him. They've got to allow him to do the job like Kyle Allen has been doing the job in Carolina, sans last week, because it was horrible last week. And Teddy Bridgewater. They've got to allow him to be that game manager, but be an efficient game manager. And if that's the case, maybe they can turn this thing around. But obviously, Denver, I think, they know they're not making the playoffs. They know they're in a rebuild mode. They know maybe their franchise quarterback Drew Lock still on IR. They don't even know if they're going to activate him yet. They've given no indication that they're going to activate him. But I don't see why they wouldn't. It would make zero sense. You've got a deep quarterback class, a quality quarterback class coming up in this NFL draft coming up here in April. And so if you throw Drew Lock in there, and this goes for the Redskins too. Listen up, Washington. Stop with this Case Keenum crap. Can we stop with that? Yeah, look, I get it. Dwayne Haskins may not be ready. Get him ready. Throw him into the fire. Get him ready. I don't give me this David Carr. We don't want to ruin him. Give me this David Carr syndrome. I don't care about that. Throw him into the fire. If he can play, he can play. Period. If you can play football, you can play football. Period. Now, I'm not a Dwayne Haskins fan. I don't think it's going to work out. I think they should draft a quarterback this coming up draft. For the Broncos, I think you need to see what you have in Drew Lock. Because look, this is what Drew Lock is. He is going to do those things. When I did my in FSA, when I did my player comparisons, my NFL scouting, my NFL draft scouting briefs, Drew Lock was Matthew Stafford 2.0 for me. That was his NFL comp for me. He is a gunslinger. He is not always going to be very accurate. He's going to make some questionable decisions, but then there's going to be some throws that he makes that are just like, wow. Like, there's not a lot of guys in the league that can make that throw. That's what he's going to do when he's ready. But in my opinion, I just don't think that there's any point in waiting. You know, whenever Drew Lock is ready, you need to bring him. You need to bring him in, Elway. So that's just my opinion on that. But look, this Broncos offense is going to be struggling, I think, a little bit. But look, if they do it the right way, Brandon Allen can be a solid game manager like Teddy has been for the Saints, and like Kyle Allen has been for the Panthers. Now, obviously, you know, we're talking about offensive masterminds like Norv Turner and Sean Payton. The Broncos don't exactly have that on their coaching staff, so it could be wishful thinking. But I think it might be a slight upgrade. You could look at this as a slight upgrade for Phillip and Royce, because I think they may lean more on the running game now. Slight downgrade maybe for Cortland Sutton, but again, maybe not. I mean, you can't really get that much worse than Joe Flacco. So if I'm a Sutton owner, I'm not really panicking. I would just pretty much treat Cortland Sutton the same way, to be honest with you, because it's entirely possible. There's plenty of room for Brandon Allen to be better than what Joe Flacco's given us so far. So Joe Flacco's out 5 to 6 weeks with a herniated disc. So Brandon Allen's going to be starting, like I said, for the next several weeks. And then we'll see what happens when Drew Lock comes off of IR, if he does, if the Broncos decide to activate him. But let's get to the big news of the weekend, and that was obviously Kenyan Drake traded to the Cardinals. Look, you guys know, again, I am such a huge Kenyan Drake fan. He's such an efficient football player when he's not playing for the horrible Miami Dolphins behind that offensive line that can't do anything. And I just think that on the right offense, he could, with the right opportunity and the right workload, he could just be a very special player. And I don't know if he's going to get that. The Cardinals were not a team that I was hoping he was going to. I was hoping he would go to Tampa or go to Detroit with Kerryon Johnson out. Or maybe even go to the Chiefs. Boy, that would have been something. Oh, goodness, that would have been something. Kenyan Drake from the Chiefs. Oh, wow. It was almost like anywhere but Miami. And now he's playing for Arizona, and you're like, okay. Not a good spot. And it's really not. It's really not. Look, David Johnson's not out for the year. Chase Edmonds is not out for the year. They're both going to be back. And now you've got a three-headed monster, which is good for them. It's good for real life football, because Kenyan Drake on this offense is, if there was you subtract David Johnson, subtract Chase Edmonds, Kenyan Drake is in an amazing position. He's in an amazing position in that Arizona backfield. However, that's not the case. You've got one of the elite running backs the last several years in David Johnson in that backfield, who is likely to come back this week. He's a game-time decision, so we'll see what happens there. Chase Edmonds has been ruled out this week, so he will not be in the fold. He could be back next week or the week after. But the point is that Kenyan Drake, in my opinion, is not going to be a reliable fantasy asset for you. Now, if David Johnson's out this week, Kenyan Drake's probably going to be the bell cow this week. He's probably going to get the work. I don't care what the coach speak is. He's probably going to get the vast majority of the work in that backfield, as he should. But they're playing the 49ers, so it's like, okay, one good thing, Chase and David are out, but you're playing the 49ers. So, I mean, how good can it actually get, right? How good can this actually get? It doesn't look like it's getting. If they were playing Miami, that'd be one thing. If they were playing the Giants and their 27th, 26th ranked rush defense, that'd be one thing. But they're playing the damn 49ers. So even if you want to play Kenyan Drake, and you can play Kenyan Drake, probably not a good idea to play Kenyan Drake. And that's unfortunate, because it seems like 2019 is going to be a wasted season for Kenyan Drake all the way around. There's just, I would, the only way that he could salvage this is if Chase and David have, more serious injuries than what we thought. A lot of people have asked me, is Chase Edmonds droppable? Yes, I think he's droppable. Kenyan Drake's droppable for that matter. As long as David Johnson is healthy, those two are droppable. So this is not a good thing, I don't think, for really anybody in that backfield. And I don't want any part of it anymore. As a matter of fact, I just traded in Dynasty. I just traded last night. I traded my final and only share of David Johnson in Dynasty. Traded David Johnson a 2020 first round pick and a 2021 second round pick for Ezekiel Elliott. I said, you know what? I'm willing to give up David Johnson and those picks for a guy that I can rely on week in and week out in Ezekiel Elliott, so that I don't have to have this stress in the back of my mind every week when David Johnson plays. Oh, David Johnson's dinged up again. Okay, I hope he plays next week. I don't have that with Zeke. We've never really had that with Zeke. So I'm really, really excited about that trade I made last night. So if I'm a David Johnson owner, I'm absolutely trying to sell as high as I can. I'm not even going to wait for a blow-up game. I'm not even going to waste my time with that because the risk with that is too large. We can assume that David Johnson is going to come back and just be the bell cow again. But you just traded for Kenyan Drake in a contract year. So that tells me you intend on using Kenyan Drake with or without Chase Edmonds. And even with Chase Edmonds, that's even worse of a situation for David Johnson. Because now you see the talent that Chase Edmonds has. So you've got 3 very talented running backs in the backfield. You're going to use all 3 of them, and you should. You should. The Cardinals have seemed to turn things around on the offensive end so far this year. The play calling has been pretty much exquisite from Cliff Kingsbury. We all made fun of them for that hire, but it's been exquisite. And so, this is something to me. I think it's a wasted year for Kenyan Drake. He's a hold in dynasty, but he's a drop in redraft, in my opinion. He's 25 years old. He's going to be 26 in January. So, it's far off of it for him being a wasted player, a wasted talent, and not worth anything in dynasty. So if you got him in dynasty, hold on to him. Because if they don't re-sign him this offseason, he's going to be on a new team. Now, whether he'll be the starter or not, with a very deep and very talented running back class coming in, that remains to be seen. And there's not a lot of teams anyway in the NFL. If you look around, there's not a lot of teams that actually need a starting running back. Detroit, maybe, depending on Kerryon's health. Tampa, definitely. I mean, there's some teams out there, but there's not a lot of teams that really, need a number 1 guy. So Kenyan Drake's going to be somewhere else next year, more than likely, and he probably have some value. But it may be time to chalk it up to, well, he's just not going to be that RB1 that we ever hoped for. Look, he's only got 69 touches on the season, so it's not like he's been run into the ground. Like I said, he's a free agent this summer. Strong running back class coming in. So it's going to be an interesting thing here to follow along with Kenyan Drake. But for me, that whole Cardinals backfield is off limits to me now. I don't want any part of it unless 1 or 2 of those guys is out for the season. And that's not what's happening right now. And if I have David Johnson, I'm not even waiting for the next blow-up game because there might not be one. Not when you just traded for Kenyan Drake and not when Chase Edmonds is not done for the year. You could legitimately say, we're going to try to have some load management. That's a big word in the NBA right now, a big term. They love using that. We're going to treat David Johnson like we would Kawhi. Our star player. We're going to give him some load management. We'll give him 10 carries this game, 10 touches this game. We'll give the rest to Kenyan and Chase. Conceivably, that might be the smartest thing to do with all this talent in the backfield. I would do it if I was in a real life, football situation. If I'm a coach, hell yeah, I'm doing it. Of course, it's not a great thing for us in fantasy, so I would sell David Johnson for as much as you can. Maybe you could do a trade like I did and get Zeke. It's worth a shot. It's worth a shot. Don't just assume everybody's going to be out on him. The other news this week, Andy Dalton has been benched by the Bengals. Zach Taylor, first-year head coach. They don't have a win on the season. 0-8. Nice, strong, high-quality quarterback class coming in. He knows he needs to see what he has in rookie Ryan Finley. Just for the hell of it. Because he knows at 0-8, he needs to spark, so he needs to get a couple of wins so that he can get the benefit of the doubt going into the offseason. That the Bengals front office can say, oh, Zach just needs his franchise quarterback, and then we can start to turn things around. And that's conceivably what could happen. Franchise quarterback, obviously, it's the most important position in all of sports, and it can change everything for you like that. So, look, the Bengals have more problems than just quarterback. Don't get me wrong. But they need a franchise quarterback. Andy Dalton has been atrocious. He has not been very good. And look, we all remember that Andy Dalton has had this quality quarterback DNA in him. He's done it before. 2015, I mean, he had a hell of a season in 2015. He finished as a top 5 fantasy quarterback. A lot of people don't realize that. He had 25 touchdowns, 7 picks, threw for over 3,200 yards. for all intents and purposes, he had a pretty solid season. And look, this is not a good situation for the Bengals. Obviously, you don't want to have to start a guy like Ryan Finley, who, look, he's got a ceiling. Ryan Finley is not a guy that has a high ceiling. He just doesn't. He's a game man. He is the definition of a game manager. Now, that doesn't mean every game manager has this negative connotation to it. I understand it. You could be a game manager and be a franchise quarterback. Contrary to popular belief, you can. It's rare, but you can. And this could be Ryan Finley. It's probably not, but it could be. And to be honest with you, I think Ryan Finley's a better fit for this offense than Andy Dalton is. I do. He's a timing and rhythmic passer. That's what Ryan Finley is. He's pinpoint accurate, much more accurate than Andy Dalton. So he can put the ball where it needs to go. He kind of reminds me of Chad Pennington. A lot of you guys remember Chad Pennington from yesteryear. He reminds me of Chad Pennington. Not a huge arm, pinpoint accurate, game manager, nothing special about him. Not really going to lose you a game too often, but he's also not going to be the reason you win a game, right? So it's possible that Ryan Finley could take this offense and win some games with it. But everybody wants to know, of course, you guys don't care about Ryan Finley. What you care about is Joe Mixon and AJ Green and Tyler Boyd. How does it affect them? And maybe even Auden Tate. So here's the thing for me. I am treating the Bengals offense the exact same way as I have all season. When AJ Green gets back, he's always been playing with subpar quarterback play. This changes nothing for a healthy AJ Green. Deploy AJ Green as a wide receiver one. Deploy him the same way you would. When he gets back, you play him. Simple as that. Tyler Boyd, I'm treating him the same way. I'm treating Tyler Boyd the same way. Look, he's wide receiver 16 on the season. He's got 82 targets. Do you guys realize he is third in targets in the NFL? He is only behind Michael Thomas at 89, Cooper Kupp at 87. And he's got one more target than DeAndre Hopkins. The difference is Tyler Boyd's not getting in the end zone. He's got one touchdown. 536 yards. He's caught 53 of those passes. Hopkins has caught 60 of the 81. Thomas has caught 73 of the 89. So this to me does not change anything for Tyler Boyd. He's still going to be more of that safety blanket. He's still going to be a reliable pass catcher. They're still going to be giving him heavy targets. This is still going to be, to me, the same player. Now, obviously, he may not get as many targets as when AJ Green gets back, but there have been splits before that support the fact that Tyler Boyd is actually better with AJ Green on the field, and it's entirely possible. But it's all going to come down to Ryan Finley, though. Joe Mixon, I'm not treating Joe Mixon any differently. Ryan Finley loves to check down the ball. He did it a lot at NC State. So Joe Mixon's targets could go up out of the backfield. We could see him catch more passes. He's still running behind a bad offensive line, but that's nothing. That doesn't change here. And if Ryan Finley can be even a little bit better than Andy Dalton in the passing game, that's going to be a good thing for Joe Mixon in the running game. So I'm not treating Joe Mixon any differently. Now, obviously, he is not the guy that he is not playing as the guy we all drafted. And look, part of that's on the offensive line. Some of it's obviously his fault too. They're just a bad team. But I think guys like Tyler Boyd and AJ Green and Joe Mixon, you treat them the same. Don't go panicking because Ryan Finley, a guy you've never heard of, or a guy you know little about, is all of a sudden the starter. You have to ask yourself, is it conceivable? Is it likely even that he is better than what Andy Dalton was putting on the field? It absolutely is. It absolutely is. Andy Dalton hadn't done anything special. He's thrown 9 touchdowns. He's thrown 9 touchdowns on 8 interceptions. He's completing 60% of his passes. Now, I get it. They're throwing a lot. So he's had a 400-yard game. He's had 2 300-yard games. He's had a couple games over 250 passing yards. But that could still be Ryan Finley. Ryan Finley can do the exact same thing. And look, Ryan Finley's probably going to have a brand new weapon coming out of that bye week. Coming out of the bye week this week, week 10 against Baltimore. He's probably going to have A.J. Green back. Thus the rumors say. So I'm not, again, don't panic on Ryan Finley. Don't panic on the Bengals offense. Treat A.J. and Tyler and Joe the same way that you would. To me, their value barely even changes, if at all. A guy that I do want to get to, though, Miles Sanders. Miles Sanders is obviously a guy that had a lot of high hopes for this year. He was my number 2 rated running back in this draft all offseason. He is a guy that I loved on film. He just popped off to me. The Penn State popped off. He still pops off to me. He is a very talented runner. He's a very talented receiver. He pops off film to me, even in college at Penn State. So to me, I think Miles Sanders is an excellent player. However, I think he's been better in real life than he has been in fantasy. Now, a lot of people look at what he's recently done, especially last week, and they wonder, okay, is this where Miles Sanders turns the corner? Is this where he takes over as the guy? I don't think it is. I don't think it is, guys. Jordan Howard, we knew when Jordan Howard became an Eagle, we knew that he was going to be part of that team. We just knew it, no matter who they drafted at running back. We hoped that Miles Sanders or whoever they drafted would be much more involved than they are, but that's not the case. Jordan Howard has been good this season, averaging 4.4 a carry. He's got 5 touchdowns. He's touched the ball 100 times. He's not very involved in the passing game. He's only got 13 targets to Miles Sanders' 24. So Miles Sanders is significantly more involved in the pass, and he's significantly better in the passing game. He's got 274 receiving yards on 19 catches and a touchdown. So look, Miles Sanders has been very good for them in really in every facet of the game. He's still got some things that he's got to fix, but he's been pretty solid. He hasn't received double-digit carries in a game since week 4 against Green Bay. And he's only gotten over 6 carries once since week 5 against the Jets. He had 3 carries against Minnesota, 6 against Dallas, 3 against Buffalo, but he was efficient with it. 3 attempts, 74 yards, and that touchdown, that long touchdown. So, of course, that help matters. He had 3 catches for 44 yards this past week. So, look, he is, in PPR, he's got some value. Standard, not really so much, but in PPR, he's got a lot more value. So, he's a guy that I'm definitely trying to target. There were a couple guys that I saw in some of my redraft leagues where he was being dropped this week. And I was like, well, you know what? I'll cut Chris Thompson and Adam. I'll cut Jamal Williams and Adam. I'll cut Damian Williams and Adam. And that's exactly what I did. So I think that Miles Sanders is a firm hold. I think that he's not going to be a guy that wins you your title if you end up winning. He's not going to be a guy that wins you that. But he's a guy that you could rely on. And look, if Jordan Howard goes down, oh my God, you've got a workhorse on your hands, folks. You've got a workhorse on your hands, in my opinion. I know Darren Sproles has been involved. You got Boston Scott, but they've only gotten 15 carries and 16 carries respectively. They're not involved in the way that you could really argue that they're involved, right? This is Jordan Howard and Miles Sanders' show. Okay, so these are the only 2 guys that are relevant, and I think they're both very solid owns the rest of the season. Jordan, they are a great complement of each other. Now, I think Miles Sanders is a better runner. I just think he needs more work. I think he's more efficient. I think he's better. And look, Jordan Howard may not even be in Philly that long. He may be shipped off after this year. They may kick him to the curb. Who knows? But regardless, they've got a nice 1-2 tandem in that backfield right now. And I think a lot of people should like that aspect, actually. Of course, we all wish Jordan Howard wasn't there and Miles Sanders could carry the load. But Miles Sanders, look, he's a guy, look, the consistency is probably not going to be there. Okay? He may completely be a dud for you this coming week. So you need to keep that in mind. It is very, very possible he could be a dud for the next 2 weeks and then blow up again in 3 weeks. So I don't think the consistency is going to be there. Jordan Howard has been, again, more solid as a bruiser than I think a lot of people really realized he would be. So, I think Miles in the passing game is obviously going to be the guy to own. But overall, I think it's going to be hit or miss week in and week out for Miles Sanders. It's going to be kind of like Jamal Williams in a way. It's kind of hit or miss. You don't really know what you're going to get. I'll tell you what this offense needs, though. This Philly offense, my God, this Philly offense needs Deshaun Jackson. Needs Deshaun Jackson. Carson needs Deshaun. The offense needs him. The running game needs him to open it up more. I mean, this whole offense is just so not exciting without Deshaun Jackson. Deshaun Jackson is going to open up that field and open up the playbook for Doug Peterson. And it looks like Deshaun Jackson could play this week. So keep that in mind. That's good for you Carson Wentz owners who are being very patient with him. And I'm one of those guys. So that to me, that's what this offense needs. But sticking on Miles Sanders specifically, I think you guys need. He's a firm hold. I like Miles Sanders the rest of the season, but I do think you need to be prepared for that consistency to not be there. And you guys know I talk about it all the time. I'm a man of consistency. I want that consistent production. That's what I want, period. And so, to me, I don't want Miles Sanders any higher as like my fourth running back if I can help it. That, to me, is a sweet spot. But I'm more than happy to own him because I think that there's going to be games where he does go off like he did last week. Another running back that actually did go off last week is Tevin Coleman. But the question is Tevin Coleman a league winner? This guy had 4 touchdowns last week, 3 of them in the first half. And this is the most. Here's an interesting stat. We all know the 49ers love to run the ball, but did you know the 49ers love to run the ball this much? They are currently the most run-heavy football team in the league, over the Ravens, over the Seahawks, and none of us expected that. If I had told you that the 49ers were going to be more run-heavy going into Week 9 than the Ravens and the Seahawks, you probably would have called my bluff. But that's exactly what's happened this year. And they're doing it well. And everybody's like, oh, a Kyle Shanahan offense, and they're running the ball that much? I know, it's crazy. You would think that they'd be throwing the ball at a higher clip, but they're not. I shared a stat last week that Jimmy Garoppolo, on last week's show, Jimmy Garoppolo is 26th or 28th in the league in pass attempts. They're just not throwing the football. And I don't know if I don't think it's that they don't trust Jimmy. I think it's more that they don't trust the receiving core. Now, they just traded for Emmanuel Sanders. He had a touchdown last week, but he led the team in targets. I think he only had like 3 targets or something. But this is just a team that the receiving core you cannot rely on outside of George Kittle. And even George Kittle's having a down year for George Kittle standards. But this is a guy, I think, in Tevin Coleman that's in a solid situation. The only problem is that Matt Breida is in the backfield. However, we've known Matt Breida to get nicked up a lot. And so there is a lot of opportunity for Tevin Coleman. Now, Matt Breida and Raheem Mostert, I think, were both out. They both did not practice yesterday. So we'll see what their status is for this week's game. But to me, Tevin Coleman should be in almost every single lineup. Unless your running backs are rock solid, he should be in every single lineup for you guys this week against Arizona. I think Thursday night, tomorrow night, is going to be an excellent opportunity for him to build on this last big game. And I think he could. I think he's going to have a rock solid game. Look, he's RB28 on the season. Okay. I think he's not an RB1. He's a weekly RB2, but he's not like a high end RB2 weekly. He's more of a mid to low RB2 because you don't really know who's going to really take over the backfield that week. Is it going to be Breida? Is it going to be Tevin? Hell, is it going to be Raheem Mostert? So you want to really tread kind of lightly with Tevin Coleman, but I think Tevin Coleman is sort of he's in that tier where it's like right behind guys like Mark Ingram, right, and ahead of guys like a guy we just talked about, Miles Sanders. You know what I mean? I think he's kind of like right ahead of Jordan Howard. That's kind of where I feel him being for the rest of the season. That's kind of where I'm comfortable with Tevin Coleman at. But he's in every lineup I own. He's in my lineup this week. I'm making sure to start him. I think he has a solid game tomorrow night. And as of you guys listening to this right now, it's actually tonight. So I think he's going to have a solid game against Arizona. I think it's actually going to be a pretty entertaining football game too. I really do. I think, don't be surprised. I'm telling you, don't be surprised if the Cardinals win this football game. Do not be, and I know it sounds crazy, but it is the NFL. Crazier things have happened. Don't be surprised if the Cardinals win that football game. I bet some of the people scoffing at that also thought that Pittsburgh was going to be up by 21 at the end of the first quarter on Miami this past Monday. I bet you. You just never know. You just never know. And I'm telling you, Kingsbury's calling the plays. And he's calling them well. The offensive line can't protect, so that's not a good thing. We don't know what to expect from the running game. I expect Kyler to be slinging that thing across the field. And, of course, Christian Kirk's going to be back this week, so that's good for them as well. He was actually back last week, but he should be back to 100% this week, so that's good. But, look, I think Tevin Coleman is a fine running back to have the rest of the season. He's a firm hold. He's obviously not going to do this, like what he did last week every week. I wouldn't even expect a touchdown every week. But I think he's a solid option. He's obviously established himself as the number one running back in that backfield. I still like Matt Breida better. I think he's a better overall football player than Tevin Coleman. He just gets nicked up a little too much for my liking, and he just doesn't get the opportunity I think that we would like to see Matt Breida get. I think he's the better overall football player. I think he's the more dynamic football player. But Tevin Coleman is fantastic in his own right, and I think he's fitting in well. Obviously, he and Kyle Shanahan have a good rapport, and Kyle trusts him. Obviously, I think Tevin Coleman has proved that he can be trusted. Again, we can trust him. I just don't think we need to be trusting him as a weekly high-end RB2. A weekly RB2 is fine, but keep expectations in check. Look, they are the league's most run-heavy offense, like I mentioned, and that's always going to be a good thing for Tevin Coleman. Kyle Shanahan is not going to try to fix something that isn't broken. If they're undefeated right now, they're doing the fundamentals well. They're getting after the opposing quarterback. They're protecting their quarterback. They're running the football. And they're playing good all-around defense. And they've got a hell of a head coach and play caller on the sidelines. And they've got a solid quarterback who's really turned into a game manager, really, right now. So they decide to open this offense up, which could come in 2020 when they draft a couple receivers, high-impact receivers. But right now, they're a run-heavy football team. That's good for Tevin Coleman. So I think that this is obviously a guy that needs to be owned, or not just but started almost weekly now, depending on what your lineup looks like. So Tevin Coleman is the guy that I really like the rest of the season. I'm buying him completely. I don't think there's anything wrong with having Tevin Coleman, even if you like Matt Breida more like me. Because I think Matt Breida is going to have those breakout games. We've seen it this year. He's had those breakout games, just as Tevin Coleman just had one. It's going to happen. And look, 1 week, one's going to be better than the other. It's going to be a little bit of a headache, but that's fantasy football in 2019. There's just, you share the rock. And to be quite honest with you, that is what teams need to do. We talk about it all the time. Running backs don't matter. This is the epitome of it. You don't need a Melvin Gordon. You don't need to pay him top dollar. You don't need to pay the Le'Veon Bell $40-50 million. It's absurd. You don't need to pay Zeke that money. Get yourself a few capable running backs, an offensive line, a good play caller, and you don't have to waste your money on the most risky position in the NFL with the most turnover. Doesn't make any sense. I'm telling you, you get me on these running backs don't matter rants, I can go for hours. I can absolutely go for hours. So guys, that is pretty much all we have for you guys tonight. Obviously, Mark, had some things to take care of tonight, so it's just me flying solo with you guys. So I appreciate you guys hanging out with me. But before you go, we got to kick it over to the producer man because we got to see what I got wrong.
Just a few notes on this one here, Chris. An AC joint technically is a clavicle injury, not a broken clavicle, but a clavicle injury nonetheless. Mason Rudolph was second only to Jameis Winston in air yards in week 8. So that narrative that he doesn't throw the ball downfield is kind of dead at this point. Also, Andy Dalton, 2013 was his top 5 season, not 2015. And he had 4,296 yards, 33 touchdowns, and 20 interceptions. Other than that, great show, man. Good stuff.
Thank you so much, producer man. Appreciate it as always. Guys, again, I really appreciate you guys taking the time to, whether you're driving in your car, whether you're listening at home, whether you're listening at the office. I can't thank you guys enough. We can't thank you guys enough for tuning on the RotoBros Fantasy Football Podcast, hanging out with us each and every week. It's been a blessing. You guys are fantastic. We couldn't do it, and we wouldn't do it without you guys. You guys are the inspiration. We want to help you guys. That's the main thing here. We want to help you guys out. We want to help you win that hardware. And of course, it's an added bonus. We get to talk about our favorite hobby with people who also enjoy and share in our favorite hobby. So it's great. It's great all the way around. We're so appreciative of what has transpired this first season of the RotoBros podcast. We can't wait to keep it going. Mark will be back with me next week, so we will be back as a pair. So you don't have to worry about that. So if you turned off the podcast within the first 5 seconds, you're obviously not listening. But if you didn't, because I was all alone, I really appreciate you guys. Thank you so much. I love you guys. I appreciate you. Again, guys, it was a fantastic show. We had a lot of fun. Listen, if you want to interact with me on social media, you can find me on Twitter at Mind of McConnell. You can also, again, find me on Facebook at the largest, most active fantasy sports community on the planet. That is FSA Fantasy Sports Advice and Analysis. Go to Facebook, type in FSA Fantasy, submit your request to join the group, and we'll approve it. You'll be a part of the best fantasy community that you could ever hope to be a part of. It just goes for all sports, not just football. Obviously, also, guys, don't forget to check out the RotoBros Patreon. $5 a month gets you Mark's weekly DFS podcast, exclusive for Patreon subscribers. It also gets you free access into the RotoBros Discord chat, private Discord chat. You get private access, exclusive access to myself and Mark. We have a DFS section in there. We have a season long and general fantasy section in there as well. A lot of great people in there, a lot of great members. It's grown exponentially. So we love all our members as well. And we would love for you to become a member and support the RotoBros if you so choose. Not only that, but you will also, during the offseason, during NFL draft season, you're also going to get my NFL draft and dynasty mini pods. We call them RotoBros minis. You're also going to get those podcasts as well. So you got a lot to look forward to year round with the RotoBros podcast. So definitely check that out as well and hit us up if you have any questions about that. Guys, it has been an absolute blast. Again, thank you guys so much for hanging out with me for about the last hour or so. I really appreciate it. Again, Mark will be back with me next week. We'll be back together again. So I can't wait for that. I'm looking forward to that as well. And guys, look, best of luck this week in the Week 9 slate. And as always, keep balling, baby.